Welcome, everyone. I'm sure there'll be people that are still joining us as we kick off our conversation this morning. So, for those that don't know me, I'm Lisa Rosenthal. I run um,
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Jeff, with my daughter Marielle, who's not here today, but you've seen her on other webinars
Gonna
and
say, yeah, that's not me. So,
met her in person. And I'm joined today by Jeff Solomon, who is always terrific and has a entire career's worth of experience in HOA condo association world.
thank you.
And we have a special guest, Andrew Massie from Plastridge Insurance. So
Yes, yes, the man.
thanks
Thanks
for
for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So, Andrew, the way this goes is this is not a credited course. There's no PowerPoint. This is a dialogue and conversation. We put the questions, we tell everyone to please send us their questions in advance, we've got a ton of questions in advance. So, we're going to start off by answering some of those questions, and then maybe you can chime in with the insurance perspective on many of those things.
Sure.
And then we'll take questions from our participants that are here with us. So we're going to ask you to use, Jeff, you want them to use the chat,
No,
right?
no, they're
Oh,
going
the
to use the
Q&A.
the Q&A module, folks. Yeah, there are two modules. They get confused very easily. The chat is not what we will be using. It's too difficult to monitor. It can move so quickly. So we're going to use the Q&A module, folks. So you can go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A. I'm going to make sure that we're going to allow anonymous questions because some of you may have questions that can teeter on controversial in your association, and you may want to. So you have our words that we will not be mentioning names. You can type in questions anonymously if you so choose.
And so specifically on that subject, I didn't get there yet, but that's great, part of our housekeeping.
Right.
Please do not mention your association name. Please do not mention a particular vendor's name. We really are interested in solving problems and understanding how you've solved for some problems and what your thoughts are, but we are not here ever, under any circumstances, to call people out and to bash vendors or associations of any kind. We don't always know the full context of a circumstance or situation, and we're here to try to help talk through, facilitate, and resolve through peer learning, right? Through
Right.
each other's experiences. Jeff, why don't you introduce all the folks that are making today's conversation possible? Because Andrew's one of them. So we can start with Andrew
hmm
at Plastridge Insurance.
Andrew, yeah, please do. As I'm pulling that up, Andrew, please tell everybody just a little bit about yourself and Plastridge Insurance and how you can help potentially help their community associations in the state of Florida and maybe beyond the borders that I just don't know about.
Yeah, happy to. It's all we do. So I'm Andrew. Our agency, Plastridge, is 107 years old. So founded in 1919 in Delray Beach, working with
Wow.
community associations for a long time. We work with something like 1,300 in South Florida right now, but yeah, but this is going to be fun because, and I was telling Lisa, the format is neat because we don't generally get to have as candid of conversations sometimes. So I saw the topics and I reached out to Lisa because there's definitely insurance implications to some
Right.
of these things. So I'm happy to help. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Andrew, and we appreciate you reaching out about that. And we also want to thank the folks who help make these programs possible. We're talking about A1 Appliance and Refrigeration Repair, South State Bank, the Paving Lady, City Quiet Windows and Doors. Who I'm glad I have some of those because I'm in the storm zone today with
Oh,
what you're seeing for the big winter storm. I'm not in Florida today. Best Roofing, the Falcon Group, of course, Plastridge Insurance. We also have the support of Vote HOA Now, K. Bender Rembam, and Reserve Advisors. And Matt is, oh God, I love that guy, Matt. He's such a
uh,
pleasant gentleman as
Mhm.
well, just like Andrew.
well, before you go any further, let me also just say nobody here is an attorney. K. Bender Rimbaum is the law firm that's sponsoring all of this morning. So if you do have legal questions, myself, Jeff, Andrew, we are not attorneys, so the conversation is not intended to be legal advice.
Right.
It is not intended to tell you what to do.
Right.
And this is pure learning. We're going to learn from one another and we're going to have dialogue and conversation about what's happening.
Okay.
But I bet Andrew can give you some solid advice.
He can. He's the
It-
expert here.
yes, yes. So
He's the
just
licensed expert. And anything that I may say how I've handled stuff in an association in the past is how we handled it based on advice we got back then. So please don't go to a meeting later on and say, Jeff said this, Lisa said that, Andrew said this. This is how it's got to be. Always check with your association counsel if you're unsure or if something is unclear in your own documents.
and we all know that if you ask three attorneys the same question, you're going to get three different
You
answers.
might get three different answers. Yeah, you might get three different answers from the same firm. You never know.
So
So the first question, what we're going to do, I'm sorry?
I was just housekeeping. All
Cool.
yours.
The we're going to start with the questions that for those of you that took the time to submit them during registration. Then we're going to take the questions that you're typing in now. We see there's one in there now, so we will get to you. We promise. The first question we want to touch upon is, and I'm going to go in the order in which they were received during registration. The first one is after putting out newsletters and posting on our HOA website, some owners will still break the covenants. What are some things we can do to resolve this issue? And if it's okay with the two of you, this one seems more CAM related. I can start off and then you can both comment. Is that okay? So I'm of the school of a good colleague and friend of ours who wrote a book, Marcy Kravitz. Some of you may know her, and she wrote a book about being reasonable. I fall into the camp of being one of the more reasonable managers when I'm on site, about exploring all the options before slamming down Thor's hammer, if you know what I mean. So, the first thing I would typically do is to see how often the issue is coming up and by how many people. Check with similar associations for similar issues that might be happening there. And the reason being is that maybe you have, I mean, not 100%, but maybe you have an antiquated rule. Maybe something is happening over and over and over again because you need to have your documents updated. Maybe you're still using the documents that the developer helped put together back in the 60s or 70s. I'm not saying everything is like that, but there are a lot of situations like that. And then and before we head to Lisa and to Andrew about this, you want to also look for some alternative measures or compromises that will be agreeable to all parties. Okay. Is it always doable? Is it always feasible? Like for example, maybe this person is shooting off fireworks in a public place. You know, that's a different story. But look for alternatives and compromises. What do you guys think? Have you heard of similar situations?
Andrew, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you're always going to have scenarios like this, right?
Right.
You can do everything right, and it's unavoidable. It's tough we're talking about people, right? We're talking about behavior. So it's tough to control it from the insurance perspective. I mean, my recommendation is always to document everything as best as you can, and because here's the
Right.
problem, right? And this is kind of why I was more excited about this format is because I don't know that I'd necessarily answer this question the same way under a different format, right? But
Right. And there's no magic bullet, one
right,
answer that's right for everybody with this question.
right. And so, but here's the reality is that you guys can do everything right. But the challenge with Florida is that anyone can sue anyone for anything at any time, right?
Right.
So it's not, I mean, I'm working through a scenario right now with a high-rise building where they have an owner that is renting their unit, and they're also not paying dues, the owner to the association. So they're way delinquent to the association, and the association is prohibiting them from renting their unit anymore because they're pointing to something in their governing docs that they feel and have been guided is relevant to that. And the challenge is that now this owner is suing the association and
Hmm.
is saying, you're preventing me from running my unit. It's a directors and officers issue with the coverage. I mean, it's the carrier's reserving something like $80,000 for this claim right now, and
Mm.
we're actually coming up for renewal, so it's impacting the insurance. So it's tough because you kind of have to operate under the understanding that even if you're doing everything right, it can still happen. So knowing that, I would say document everything as best as you can, because if and when it does happen, the more defensible your position is, the better. And the only way you position yourself as defensible as possible is by documenting everything and keeping track of everything. And so I'd say from the insurance perspective, that'd be my recommendation. But Lisa, I don't know if you have anything else.
It's a great way to cover yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of document, 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 right? Everything. Because you're 100% right. You could do your absolute best. You've done nothing wrong. We are all still human, and people are never going to like all of the decisions you make. They're never going to like it. It's a very hard position to be in. And no matter what you do, no matter what you do, it can be problematic. I always find it very interesting when residents want to sue their own HOA or association, because at the end of the day, it comes back to the association.
You're suing yourself.
Right. And unless they're looking to sell their unit or their home, it's counterproductive, right? And sometimes, look, on both sides, you have unreasonable boards that are not doing the right thing, right? And you have unreasonable residents that no matter what you do, you can't please. So your thought, Andrew, about just documentation, you just have to make sure you're covered. And it doesn't mean that it makes the problem go away. It just means that you can document and prove you worked in good faith, you did all that you were required to do, and that you made an attempt to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that no matter what you do, because the question was about putting it out, right? I think you have to put it out all the time. And just
Yeah.
because you put it out,
Yeah. The question was about how do we resolve the issue, and there's no one magic bullet.
no, because you can email, but now today, how many of your residents opt out of email? They don't want email from you and they're opting out, so now you can't send it. Now you have to put any communication in in snail mail, right? The US Postal Service, how reliable are they? I never got it. Well, it's not my responsibility to make sure that the post office delivers it. It's my responsibility to send it to you in mail because you've opted out of email.
Right.
And then in communities where people are older, 55 plus communities, that the community still leans older, you might have people in their 80s and 90s that technology really is challenging and it's a problem.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways. I don't think there's a blanket answer. I mean, in addition to all of that, we also print what we do and we leave it in the lobby of the clubhouse. On bulletin boards, and we do our best to communicate in a variety of ways, but it is inevitable at every single meeting for every single issue. I never got that. I never got that.
Right. Yeah. I just got a text actually from one of the board members one of the boards that I work with, and they reminded me about the message center that we just put up in their lobby of their high rise. So that's so one of the things, to answer how do we resolve the issue? We already said there's no magic bullet thing that's going to fix it 100%, but you can take steps. One of the steps they took, in addition to the emailing, in addition to the newsletters, in addition to the meetings, in addition to the postings, they put up a television message center in the lobby close to the mailroom where everybody goes, because everybody typically goes to check their mail once a day, or hopefully more, hopefully once a day. So they put it in a high traffic area, and that message center can be updated from anywhere in the world with a phone or an internet connection. So that's a step they took, and it was a very inexpensive step. And the reason I know that is I helped them implement it, and out the door it was under $300 for the whole thing, and they were done. So, so increased communication is one of the ways. Even if you think you have great communication, one of the ways to help combat this is to increase it even more.
Right. Great. So thank you so much for the question. It's a good one. It applies to everyone, every association, every community. Probably applies to most corporations, probably
Yeah.
applies to
Yeah.
most families. Or communication is always a challenge. So,
Here's one that this next one, Andrew's going to have a bunch to say. I have a strong feeling about this one. We're going to touch upon one of the questions submitted here, also in the order in which we got them. Have you any examples of charging for street parking? And what are things to remember when working with organizations having close city events, but expect, and that's the key word that they put in the question that puzzles me, expect to use your property. And before we turn it over to Andrew for the insurance liability side of things, I just want to quickly mention, as we did with the first question, some of the things that I've experienced in the past, and then Andrew and Lisa will chime in. So something like this can be a steady revenue stream. So for an example, your association might not be far from, I don't know what it's called anymore, Joe Robbie Stadium or a sporting venue. And they happen to have you might happen to have a large unused dirt parking lot that's just sitting there taking up space. And you think, oh, when there's an event, maybe we could allow people to park there and raise revenues for the association. So I've seen that done. It's done quite often. Some of the things to consider is it a street, public, city owned space, or is it private property? Check on that. Check your association documents. If you are private property, see what your documents say about allowing outsiders in, not only to park there, but allowing outsiders in general. What are your procedures for that? And whatever your procedures are, you want to have clear signage, and if possible, maybe a person directing people where to go. You want to take heed if you're going to entertain this. Something we always had to do is take heed to the time of the year. What time of the year is it? Is this something you want to do? Do you want to allow the public in to use your space in the height of season, the height of your busy season? That's not something that may go over well with your membership. Now, this is where we're going to, in a moment, we're going to get to Andrew about this, but I've seen associations designate certain areas as paid parking, even for their own owners. Okay. Also passed by their boards and then placed into their documents. So, for example, premium parking spaces closer to the theater or closer to the parking lot. Also usable for non-resident guests. In associations that also allow the public to come in for their entertainment, or maybe for the golf, or maybe you have a restaurant on site.
right.
And in these cases, at least the place that I ran or helped run, the revenues that came in from that went right back in, and in a positive way, to everybody to help offset maintenance costs in future budgeting. So that was one of the revenue streams we had coming in, along with some other things we'll talk about later, that helped offset other costs. So now this is where we want to get to Andrew. You want to ask your association counsel and your insurance agent about the liabilities. Like, for example, Andrew, what if you allow the outside public to come in, they park there, you charge for their parking, but their car gets damaged on private association property? That's one of many liabilities, I would guess. Right, Andrew?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because it makes sense. There certainly can be a significant source of revenue there. I mean, we've all parked at these events. It's astonishing how much you have to pay to park sometimes. I mean,
Right.
so depending on the scenario, but from the insurance perspective, so these are kind of two different questions, right? Because I think uh, part of the original question was, it sounded like the event organizer was
Expects to
potentially
use your property.
wanting to use. Yeah. I mean, and I don't necessarily think there's an issue with that. Obviously, the insurance implication with that is what you hit on, Jeff, is someone's car gets damaged or someone gets hurt in the parking lot as a result of the event. And the critical piece of this from the insurance perspective, there's obviously other legal considerations, but from the insurance perspective, the most important thing you can do is get a certificate of insurance from the event organizer. If they want to use our parking lot, great. Work out whatever deal you want to work out, but non-negotiable as part of that conversation is we, the association, want to be listed as an additional insured, which is critical, on the event organizer or the event owner's insurance. It's very meaningful because what happens is if someone's property gets damaged, if someone gets hurt, or also if association property gets damaged as a
Right.
result of this event, right? What you can do if you have a certificate of insurance is instead of having to sue this event organizer or pursue someone legally if something happens, you can literally call their insurance company. You don't even have to talk to them, right? You don't even have to talk to the organizer. You can call their company directly and you can say, hey, I am an additional insured on your client's insurance policy. Here's what happened. We'd like to go ahead and file a claim. And being able to do that is way less work, way less intensive, way less confrontational than
Yeah.
having to pursue someone legally or other avenues. So from the insurance perspective, I would say that is the critical thing is certificate of insurance listing the association as an additional insured.
Does that change? Great answer. And does that change if the associate? I mean, there are associations out there that are not behind gated community. They're not behind closed doors,
Yeah.
and there's street parking like right in the middle of
Oh
US
yeah.
one, for example. There's really nothing anybody could do about that. If you have your association a big square section with a couple of buildings there and then street parking all around it. If the streets are not private property, there's not much anybody can do about that. Again, we don't know what the question asker intended by the question 100%, but if it's street parking, are they SOL, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I mean, if it's public parking, you can't really, there's not a lot you can do. I mean, I guess the second perspective on the question, right, was I think the question that I answered is the event organizer wants to use your parking lot. The other perspective is if the association wants their parking lot used, right? If it's our idea and we just want, additional revenue and we want to, put a sign up parking $20
Mm.
on our own, it's a different conversation because there's not really anyone to get that certificate of insurance from, right? It's not. So what I would definitely encourage everyone to do is you have to communicate that to your agent and you have to communicate that to your insurance company because for associations, your general liability policy, right, is the policy that covers you for association gets sued, slip and fall, whatever happens.
Right,
But what everyone needs to know about that policy is something like 10 to 12 pages in, there's this thing in there, and
right.
it's called an exposure schedule. And it lists everything that your association has or does that the insurance company deems a risk or an exposure, right? And they charge a
Mm.
premium for it.
Yeah,
So it'll say number of units. Here's what we're charging for that. Swimming pool. Here's what we're charging for that. Tennis court, right? So everything you have. If you're operating, right, a for-profit parking business, you need to have that on there because that's not just going to magically be on there. The policy doesn't just pick up any type of exposure. If the insurance company is not aware that you're now in the business of parking, right? Because that's a very different exposure. If you're doing that and you don't communicate that to the insurance company and something happens, then there's a very real scenario that you try to file this claim and the insurance company comes in and says, "Look, we didn't you're a condominium association. We had no clue we were insuring a for-profit parking business. We would have charged a totally different premium or whatever it is." So if you're doing something like that, definitely make sure you're communicating that.
and that's becoming more and more common when you talked about parking, charging for parking, in the sense that a lot of communities today, with these newer developments, you're seeing developments with retail on site
Yeah.
on association property that allows the public to come on in. So it's becoming a touchier and touchier subject as time goes on.
There's so many different parts and pieces because there's so many different varieties of associations and they're morphing, right? And there's so many new suggestions about how what we currently have, how those properties should change. So
Yeah.
I think the insurance piece, Andrew, mitigating risk is what you do. And, um, if somebody sues somebody and they want to evade service, you have the right to turn around in most policies and say, well, we're not covering you, right? There's so many things. I mean, it's attached to parking, it's attached to everything. If the person or the board doesn't properly cover the property with all the parts and pieces for all the activity on that property, shame on the board, right? But coming back to the insurance piece, every part of the association has to be discussed. Every part of the parking lot, the pool deck, what amenities are on the pool deck? Can we have a barbecue on the pool deck? No, you can't just drag a barbecue onto your pool deck and decide you're going to have a barbecue, right? You're not covered under most policies that way. Has to be a certain number of feet from the clubhouse or from a house or from a structure. So each aspect of a community, the tennis courts, pickleball courts, the pool, right? The parking lots are part of the association, right? They're covered. So if it's part of your insurance policy, if it's on your property, it has to be part of your insurance policy, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
100%.
There's some great questions in this Q&A.
Yeah, we'll get to those.
Yes, we will. I know. I'm just looking at them going, oh, I just had that experience. So
Yeah.
good question.
Yeah.
Really good questions.
Some fantastic ones there. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you want to talk about next, Jeff?
I want to get to, I'm going to go slightly out of order just in case we don't know Andrew's schedule. So just in case he needs to skip out before you and I are done, I want to get to the ones that are going to be more likely involving Andrew's expertise.
Sure.
Let me see here. So this is one that we know is a hot topic. It was written in during registration, and there's one related to it in the Q&A that Lisa just alluded to. A liability is created when enacting firearm restrictions in common areas and the events that take place within those common areas. Now, remember, none of us are attorneys. So I'm going to speak on a couple of points that I'm aware of before I turn it over to Andrew and Lisa to elaborate further. But the liability for property managers and HOAs, and Andrew, chime in, interrupt if I'm incorrect in the way I'm thinking here. But HOAs and associations face risks. There are enforceability issues. Restricting firearms in common areas, I'm not even talking concealed or not. These have to be carefully drafted. I cannot say it any more clearly that this is something you want to contact your association counsel about, your insurance agent about. Outright bans that infringe upon an owner's ability to transport their gun from their car to their home, for example, can easily be deemed as unenforceable. I mean, how do you enforce something like that?
What about in common space, Jeff? What about in what about HOAs in a clubhouse? Or, I mean, I live in an HOA.
That associations can disallow having them at all in their public spaces. That is something that is permitted, that does allow them to do, concealed or not. Going into a gym, a theater, a clubhouse, an art studio, a restaurant on site, they can that's common areas. They can disallow having them in there. Period. That is something that they are allowed to do. But again, these things have to be carefully drafted, carefully worded, and you want to contact your experts in the field. Things that I've seen raised by some of the callers on our past webinars, even that restricting these firearms can lead to claims that an association did not provide a safe environment if a crime occurs. Like Andrew said earlier, people can sue for anything.
Well, think about it, Jeff. I sit on my board. Think about that. I have people stand up and yell at me all the time. And I thank them for their thoughts. They're all entitled to their thoughts. I'm a firm believer that, if you are an owner, you have a right to speak, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to like what you say, but you have a right to speak. What you
Yeah.
don't have a right to do, and we've talked about this on previous webinars here, you don't have a right to be disrespectful to me. So I find, and I think we even had this very same discussion, right? If you don't have enough self-restraint not to stand up and curse at me publicly as a grown adult, right? I have very serious concerns that you don't have enough restraint not to pull the trigger and shoot me because you're angry. So I think it's a real problem. It's a real conversation. I think the condo, right, passing through public space to get to your home, I think that might um, be the only place I can think of that would restrict you from an association. I mean, I'm not a lawyer again, but
Well, yeah, like if you have to go through a common area to get to your unit, like if there's no other way to get to your unit, for example, you have to go through the clubhouse or you have to go through a lobby or you have to go through a
in the
mailroom.
elevator, right, to get to to get home.
Right. Yeah, it's Andrew, what have you seen? What have you heard?
Yeah, I mean, the enforceability is probably more of a legal question, but what I will say though, and from the insurance perspective, and
Right.
hopefully this doesn't I don't want to sound too doom and gloom, right? With because the idea, like these are good questions, and the concepts here are how do we position ourselves the best way? Like what's the best practice here? And
Right.
I I had so the past 12 months I've had two fatal shootings at
Oh,
associations that I insure. I know.
Clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, I'm
So
sorry.
now
Sorry to
here
hear.
the reason I tell you that though is because you use this phrase, Jeff, failure to provide a safe environment, right? Now that's so broad. You
Yeah.
know? And
I work with
any
attorneys.
decent
So,
attorney, right? These attorneys are it's and these two claims that I had, um, very similar scenarios, right? Now here's kind of the here's the reason I bring that phrase up is because that was the allegation in both claims, right? Or one of them at least, failure to
right.
provide a safe environment. But in one association, right, they didn't have any sort of security. In the other association, they had armed guards. So now the
Yeah.
allegation was the same for both. So the question is, what do we need to do to provide a safe
What's a
environment?
safe environment?
And it's not defined anywhere, right? So
Yeah.
an attorney is going to say, no matter what, if someone got hurt, if someone got shot, you don't have a safe environment. You just don't because that happened. So it's kind of a catch-22 because there's no definition of a safe environment where
Yeah.
the association can't say, yes, we do because we did this, this, and this, because that's not defined anywhere, right? So it's the argument is going to be you don't have one because this happened. Now, what I would make sure everyone does though is really, really pay attention to your coverage because
Yeah.
a lot of these companies and these two associations that I work with, I should have one of them was a current client, the other one we're taking over. They're down south, they're in Miami, but the reason I got involved at all is because their attorney called me that I know her well, and she basically was picking my brain on this, and she's like, "Look, here's what happened. They had a shooting. Basically, what happened is it's like a domestic dispute, and
Mm.
the victim made it out of the unit into the common area walkway, and then passed away in the walkway, so in the common area. So, but
Yeah.
their situation, the reason the attorney was calling me is because she told me they have a firearms exclusion in the liability policy. So catastrophic for this association, obviously. I mean, this was it was kind of a combination of really unfortunate situation, but the victim ended up being like a senator's son, like an ex-senator's son, and the judgment at the end of the day, the judgment came down like 6 months ago. 100 million dollars was the judgment for this. Now it gets split up, right? So the management company took some, but the association was left with a $33 million judgment. They're appealing it
Mm,
right now and it's ongoing. But the problem is that their policy has an exclusion for firearms. They literally have zero coverage at all
mm,
for this claim. So their options are appeal it, sue the old agent, which they're doing, or split it, assess for it.
mm.
So, it's a horrible situation that could have been prevented if they just sat down and really looked at the coverage with the agent and said, "Oh, whoa, this option has a firearms exclusion. We don't want this. We'd prefer to work with a company that doesn't exclude that." I mean, that's what your mindset has to be as board members, as property managers is like we can be doing everything right and still be in a really unfortunate situation. So knowing that we have to constantly be looking at our coverage, looking at what we're doing to make sure that if something bad happens, God forbid, we're okay. We're protected. There's not issues with our coverage. So that's critical. I know that's not a very optimistic answer because the answer is kind of we can't
But
prevent it.
Andrew, and Jeff, there's a comment in the Q&A. Somebody wrote, unprotected in quotes, gun-free zones created by civilians without providing security then are made potentially dangerous locations. Even churches are now permitting weapons. It's
I
really,
know.
in your perspective, it's about the coverage, right? It's
Yeah.
just about protecting yourself as an association to make sure your insurance policy, um, that your policy is placed with a company that doesn't exclude firearms, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's critical.
This is one of those topics where everybody's point makes sense,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because it's kind of like what the commenter just wrote. He or she or they're not wrong because it could be interpreted that way, but at the same time, somebody else could interpret what this person just commented on and saying, "Well, they're doing it. Why can't we do it?" So there's so many different ways to look at it. You know, just because one entity is doing something one way doesn't mean we should be doing it that way, or vice versa. But at the same time, yeah, it could be deemed as unprotected. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it's,
touchy.
you
Lisa,
know,
you're going through some of that, aren't you? You're aware of situations like that close by or
it's just that it's been an ongoing
hot
conversation.
topic.
Um, and there are people uh, that think the association should not restrict
Yeah,
individuals from carrying in our public spaces. And there are people that in the same community who want to know it's a gun-free zone.
yeah, yeah,
And let me just preface this. It is not just guns, it's weapons of any kind, right? It's not just guns, not those guns either. It's weapons of any kind. It could be any kind of weapon. So it's a subject I think maybe Jeff, we can invite somebody from KBR
yeah.
to talk about this specifically.
This could be a show all on its own.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
see if we can schedule a webinar, you know, just on this subject matter.
Get Andrew back and an attorney. This would be a great conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
know,
so we're gonna move on from the weapon conceal
yeah.
or otherwise
Well,
because
I did this on purpose because the next question that is what should this is
but
one of
wait,
the
before you go on to the next question, we did have a follow-up to the parking. So if we could
oh,
just let's clean up that subject and see if we can answer these questions.
certainly.
So there's a question here, association-owned parking, clubhouse, rec areas. Also sometimes have vehicles stored long-term, right? They have areas Sometimes they have long-term. Some of those are abandoned, no published rules around towing,
About no towing or signage. Yeah.
right? And then so there's that. And then there's right
Sounds
underneath.
like outdated documents to me. You might need some updating to your association
Yeah.
docs there. But Lisa, back to you.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, that's fine. I mean, because when you don't have any published rules, the first thing to do is generate rules. Your board can do that even if they don't update the docs. They can create rules. That's something that boards are, I understand, are permitted to do. But again, go back to your association council for guidance specific to your community, because we are not attorneys. There is another parking question right under that, Jeff, Joanna Vega.
Oh, when the
When,
association have this marked parking areas on the side of the roads, but the roads are public. And I don't know if you mean by public, maybe you can elaborate. When you say public, do you mean not association property? How is the association able to enforce illegal parking like trailers? I'm assuming ATVs, and amenity parking overnight. If it's not association property, I don't see how they could. I'm not an attorney, of course, but I don't see how they could if it's city owned. It's not up to the association to do that. Is that how you guys interpret that question?
I do, and then you would want, if you have a car parked illegally for an extended period of time, you can call the authorities.
Call the authorities if it's not yours. Yeah, that's the
Right.
answer.
Yeah, and if it's not your property, I don't know, is it adjacent to your property? Does it border your property? There's not a lot of clarity there.
I'm going to assume by this person saying the roads are public that it might be one of those associations that are on a main road, and then you have the
Yeah.
association common areas, but then the parking is on the street. That's my best guess. And sometimes associations strike deals with local municipalities to have signage along the roads around their building that designates the parking for residents and their guests. So if that's the case, you get with your manager and have the manager converse with whomever would enforce that, whether it's on-site security, working in collaboration with the city, or vice versa. Maybe you just call the city.
Right.
It all depends on the structure of what. I don't want to use the word deal, but the structure of the deal. So whatever deal, whatever is constructed between the association and the city, see what that says about who's enforcing it, and then you go on from there. So,
Okay.
well,
Thank you. I think we're good with parking. I think we've kind of wrapped up parking. So
all right. So
next question.
Andrew, what should well, I'll answer the equipment part, but I want your take on unsupervised fitness centers. That was something that somebody wrote
Mhm.
in. What should an unsupervised fitness center contain? So my opinion on actual equipment would be machines that are cable and pulley run. In other words, go easy on the free weights because you're more likely to have injuries occur with things that are not on a track system versus things that are on a track system, where if the person is struggling with it, it's not going to fall on them. So my advice is to go with things that are not free to gravity that can fall on you. So go easy on the free weights. If you're going to have free weights, go real light, maybe up to a certain limit. Then just use equipment that is on track systems or poles, so that again, if you're benching or whatever it might be, and you can't handle it anymore and you drop it, you're relatively safe. From an insurance standpoint, there's nobody monitoring the fitness center. Maybe there are no cameras in there. Maybe they want to put cameras in there. Andrew, your advice on unsupervised fitness centers in an association.
Yeah, very common, obviously. I mean, it's
Right.
it's a nice amenity. I would say I definitely agree with the type of equipment, the selection, because when we get claims involving the fitness center, yeah, it's primarily free weights and, freestanding equipment. As far as best practices, I mean, so this is kind of similar to our conversation about the parking. If you have one, you definitely need to make sure it's on your policy, because it's not just it's not just going to magically be included, right? So
Right.
I'm an association that just turned a part of their clubhouse into a fitness center, and it wasn't there before. And had they not communicated that to me, someone gets hurt in there. I don't know if the insurance company covers it or not,
Right.
right? So the constant communication is important. As far as best practices, I mean, cameras are tough because honestly, I've heard some attorneys say that they help, and I've heard some attorneys say that they hurt. So it kind of depends on the nature of the situation. Yeah, if someone is being totally negligent in the fitness center and you have a sign that's posted on the door that says, shoes and shirts required, and there's a video of them walking right past that sign barefoot and then working out barefoot, and then they drop a weight on their foot and get hurt. I would like to think you're in a pretty defensible position because you have that camera, because
Yeah.
you have that footage, right? So, but at the same time, I mean, there's the other scenario where maybe there's something in that video that shows that the equipment's somehow not being properly maintained, or it's tough. It's tough
Right.
because
Lubrication, things of that sort. Yeah.
right, right.
Well,
So
I'd share with everyone a real world situation where the cameras really came in very handy. There was an incident between two residents, and the video didn't lie, but the resident did. So, we found the cameras to be very helpful,
yeah.
very helpful. And it was a situation where a woman claimed a man hit her, and she came running out of the fitness center yelling for help. And it was crystal clear because we have audio and video. The man did absolutely nothing wrong, and she hit him and tried to make it appear like he had done something wrong and hit her. So, um, you know, people are people, and I'm very happy we had the camera. I'm happy
Yeah.
for the gentleman who was falsely accused of doing something improper, and it was crystal clear on video, not only the video itself, but the audio of what all he did was say, "Excuse me." Literally, he said, "Excuse me." It was quite unbelievable, but if I didn't see it, I wouldn't have believed it. But the cameras were really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, again, we said we're talking about people, right?
Yeah, it's
And we don't all come from the same place. We don't all have the same sensibilities. We have different versions of common sense. We see the world differently. And when you live in an association, there's a level of respect you have to walk into the entire community with, knowing
yeah.
there are rules and regulations, there's guidelines, and I'm living within an HOA or a condo association. Otherwise, you should find a home that isn't governed by an association of any kind. But people are people, Andrew. Right?
Yeah, it's behavior. This is what we said at the beginning, there's never going to be perfect answers to these types of questions because you're talking about trying to control behavior. I mean, it's not possible. So we have to just what can we do to position ourselves most effectively?
Right? Right?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of these discussions is we're talking about how we've seen these things handled in the past. And again, if whatever we say, it doesn't mean it's the right way for your association. And we also mentioned earlier that attorneys within the same firm may have differing opinions. So always contact your talk with your association counsel if you're unsure.
Yeah, there's so many nuances, right? And reasons why things work in one community and not another. This is
So
a general conversation.
absolutely, absolutely.
What's
Let me
Jeff?
see. I'm being mindful. I want to be mindful of Andrew's time and make sure. It looks like the rest of these. Okay, so now we can go back in order.
So,
And the next couple, I'm going to do quick rapid fire answers because we're running short on time. So how do you bar delinquent owners from board meetings? And the quick answer is you can't bar them from board meetings, but you can ban them from amenities and things of such. I don't want to get into the procedures. Contact your association counsel for that. So you cannot ban owners from the open board meetings.
And
But
you can't prevent them from accessing their home.
right. So, but they can lose voting rights and amenity access. So contact your association counsel about that. And then another question that we're going to do rapid fire because there's just so much here. What are your options in collecting an assessment? That's a very broad, general question, but
Mhm.
delinquency notices, you can try payment plans, notices of intent to lien, recordings of a claim to lien, foreclosure procedures, suspension of rights. Things to consider in the state of Florida. Again, I sound like a broken record. You want to talk with your legal counsel about collection matters, about the time frames of the different steps. Same thing with special assessments. Talk to your counsel and make sure you're following the proper notice schedule and always consult for anything. The first thing you should do, which is probably the first thing I should have said, is look at your governing documents, see what they say about situations that may be occurring that seem contradictory to what you think should be happening in a perfect world. Anything to add to that before we go to the next one?
No.
Perfect.
All right. So we covered the delinquency being barred from amenities.
Let's go to the when you have a weak president, what's the best way to stop the CAM from actually running, controlling all member and board of director meetings? It's an interesting question. I have like 5 questions around that. It's
Happens a lot.
it does, and it's not just a weak president, but it's an ineffective board, right? A board
Sometimes.
that oh, you're going to forgive me. I have to mute myself. I'm going to pass it to you for this minute.
No, go for it. The reason I say sometimes, thank you, Lisa. The reason I say sometimes, Andrew, is because the CAM is supposed to be working at the pleasure of the board. So the board may have abdicated the running of the meetings to the manager. So I don't know if that answers your question, but when you have a weak president, Lisa mentioned it could also be indications of having an overall not too effective board. That could be the case too. I just moderated a board meeting the other night on Zoom where they were recalling half the board. I mean that's one thing that can be done if it's something that a lot of folks there feel is a major issue in the association. You can take the steps to recall a board. But
So
again, I
let's
fault.
just be clear, and my apologies for having to jump for a minute,
Mhm.
but you just be clear about what that means to recall a board or board member, because not everybody they may think that's a board decision. That's not a board decision. That's a community member's decision that gets voted on.
Right.
So I just want to be clear because I don't know who's here, and not all board members are seasoned and may not know what that
Right.
really means.
Nor do we know who's asking the question. Is it a
Correct.
member or is it a board member? So we don't
Correct.
know who's asking the question.
Correct.
So, but this is just what I've seen. I've seen recalls occur from the membership. I've seen going back to that word reasonable. Maybe there's a
Whose version?
reason. There
Whose
could be,
version of
yeah,
reasonable?
there could be a reason this is happening. Again, the CAMs work at the pleasure of the board. The CAM works for the association, for the board, not the other way around. The board doesn't work for the CAM. So,
So, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
So depending on who, it's an anonymous question, but
Mhm.
depending on who you are in this association, if you are a board member and you're frustrated with your president, um, you have every
Talk.
right to step up and say, this can't happen, right? Or
Or
call,
why is it happening?
why is it happening? You can call the management company. Again, I don't know if you're an HOA, I don't know if you are, uh, I don't know who you are. I don't know what kind of association you have, if it's HOA or condo. If you have a management company or you're self-managed and that CAM works for the president, I'm not sure what the real structure is, but the the first thing I would do is go to the management company, right? And I would document, like Andrew said previously, but make sure you document your communication. Um, and I would, you know, try to understand the why before you
Do anything.
take any action. But again, there's so many more questions around your question before
Hmm.
uh, it could be really specific about, what next steps might be possible. But if you have a management company attached to the situation, I might reach out to them, might reach out to other board members. Recalls are always an option, but that's a lot of work and a lot of unpleasantness within the
Right.
community. Remember, all of the board's actions, have consequences, not just legal consequences or insurance consequences, but cultural consequences to the pleasure of living there, right? We're all neighbors. What kind of community do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a community where everybody's suing each other? Right? I mean, we all have a right to what's that language, Jeff? Peaceful enjoyment of our home. So I think there's more questions than uh, I think I have the ability to even comment further on. But
Mhm.
Andrew, you or Jeff might have comments.
No, I mean, there's not really. It's more of an operational question, right? I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I've been in all different kinds of board meetings with all different types of dynamics, and I don't know. I mean, I have seen managers way overstep, and I've seen boards either let it happen or not. I mean, and from my like very personal perspective, obviously, it's just insurance, but um, there's management companies that have financial relationships with certain insurance agencies. I mean, we don't have that with anyone, but there's literally agents that will kick back part of their commission to the management company. So, I mean, I feel it all the time. Like our boards that we work with and do a good job with, do a good job for. Sometimes they get pressure from their management company to change agents or let another agent come in for no other reason than the management company gets a cut. And to me, and by the way, I'm always the one that has to tell them that. The management
Hmm.
company never tells them that they're, what the relationship is.
Yeah.
And once we have that transparent conversation, then it's up to the board. Do we take control of this? Like, how do we navigate it? And a lot of boards are offended by that. And it is kind of an example of a scenario where it can be, a manager potentially overstepping or, you know, uh, taking control of something that they shouldn't necessarily be the ones controlling. And then it's kind of up to the board, how do we handle that?
So Andrew, it is true not just in insurance, but in
Yeah,
all
sure,
in
yeah.
all vendor relation. I just want to make sure people know
Yeah.
it's not an insurance industry issue. It is a management company board vendor issue. And it happens, it should all be disclosed. It should not be kept private. The banking management company relationship where management companies get paid, right? They actually make money on the float and things like that. And again, I'm not an attorney and I'm not a banker. But there is a lawsuit pending, right? And if that lawsuit, if they win, it will change things drastically. So these are all things that board members really need to keep abreast of and pay attention to. Your management company, like there's an anonymous statement in here, a weak board of directors rarely will seek new CAM bids yearly. So I'm not sure again what kind of association you are discussing, if it's HOA or condo, but if it's a CAM bid, then I might suggest that you're talking about a self-managed property where there's no management company, or are you talking about a management company that provides the CAM to the association? So I'm not,
Let's assume they mean either one because to me that's not common to accept CAM bids every single year. Why would
no,
something,
well, I'll just say this, some communities have clause, and again, it goes back to
Right.
look at your governing docs,
Right.
where they say you cannot enter into an agreement for more than 1 year. It's
Right.
in the docs,
Right. No, no, I get
right?
that. I get
So
that.
every year, now statute also says, right, that um, any proposal that's more than 10% of the annual budget needs to be, you know, vetted
Right.
out. It needs competitive
Absolutely.
quotes, right? You have to get other quotes. So some of this is governed by statute, and you literally you wrote yearly or ever. Yes, we have seen that also. So you do have recourse. I would tell you to go to your association attorney to discuss and see what best next steps are for you. Um,
But
I
first, try to find out why. That's
yeah, I mean, 100%. I unseated a landscape company that was on my property for 26 years.
Did you
Never
say
got,
did you say unseated, like
I did.
SEEDED?
Well,
So I
Very
couldn't.
funny.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. That bad dad
very
joke of the
good,
day.
very good, very good. And it was just contracts weren't being bid out, and sometimes it's an easy fix. Sometimes a new board or a new board member just has to take control and actually get the quotes, bring it to the table, right,
Yep.
and present it. But every board is also different, and the dynamics on the board are different, and the players are all different, and the circumstances, because docs are all different and communities are all different. That's why we continue to say throughout this entire hour, we are not attorneys, and go back to your community council for thoughts and ideas about how to solve some of these problems in your community.
Okay.
How much more do we have in
There's just we're just going to do the last three. The two that are in the Q&A, we'll do those sort of rapid fire because I think they're
Go right
quick
ahead.
answers. Um, the first one is the ability to publicize finding and complaints received are, for example, violations on a website naming names.
Hmm.
From a CAM standpoint, I'm not a fan of public humiliation. I think there are many other ways to do it. What's your guys' take on that?
Well, as a board member, I would never do such a thing.
Right, right.
Um, we do on occasion need to vote on placing restrictions to a homeowner that is delinquent. Um, at a board meeting, we'll use an address, not a name, because we're not looking to embarrass anybody. We just,
Yeah.
legally, we have to do what we have to do. We have to get it on the record. We have to vote on it, and we move on. But again, that also speaks to culture in your community and who wants to live in a place that, you know, culture's not nice, you
And
know.
it's more than just, Lisa, that's a fantastic point about community culture. And I'm going to use the word culture as well. We're a very diverse country, very diverse land. And sometimes things that happen in your association might not be something you're used to, but might be commonplace where somebody else might come from. So this is why it's always very important that no matter what you see happening, before you jump to conclusions, before you freak out over a headline that you read, or before you react to something that you see without doing research first, always find out the why. That seems like that's a common theme today, is find out the why of something before reacting or looking to course correct.
Well, with all due respect, Jeff, you and I and Andrew both, we all know sometimes getting to the why is impossible.
Sometimes,
Right? Because you don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
sometimes.
And people can be belligerent and not want to share. And communication, it all boils down to communication. And without the communication, there's no trust. And without the trust, you have a lot of frustration.
So the last one's more of an opinion question. Based on the history of the condo state ombudsman, having one for HOAs worthwhile or not really? I know my answer. What do you guys want
I'm
to
gonna
go?
if you know so quickly, then go
I
for it.
I, I don't. I love the. I like the people that have been in that position before from a human standpoint, but I'm not a fan of the position. That's just my opinion as a community association professional. I'm not a fan of the position.
How about you, Andrew, from your where you sit? Because
I don't think it
Uh,
helps.
No, I think I agree with you, Jeff. I mean, I don't I think I'd be on the same page.
Yeah, nothing against the folks that have held that position in the past. Good people. I just
Yeah.
I don't see I don't see the effectiveness of the position.
So that is probably the more common sentiment that both of you have, is that the position is ineffective, right? Again, not about the people that hold the position, but that the position itself is ineffective.
It's a
They're
good way
handcuffed.
of putting it.
They're
Yeah.
handcuffed. You
Yeah,
know.
Yeah.
yeah.
The last of the pre-submitted questions. Have you seen clubs? I'm going to guess they mean association clubs, like a bridge club or a golf club or a whatever club, a ceramics club. Have you seen clubs exclude people? And if yes, how do they do that? And I personally have not seen clubs exclude people, but what I have seen is that, and what I've experienced when I was on the field, is that they must allow anyone who lives there the ability to join the club if they so choose, if the club is one that is recognized and endorsed as an association club. And
Correct.
from what I mean by that is this would allow for funding towards the club to be included in the association's annual budgets. So this, but it's the scope of the club, like what the club is all about, that would keep people with uncommon interests out of it. So, for example, I'm going to go there. Okay, I'm going to go there, but don't worry, I'm not going to be controversial about it. Let's say you have a Republican club and a Democratic club in your association. Okay, everybody has their different ways of thinking. Anybody can join either one of those clubs. Anybody that lives there can choose to join one or both of those clubs. What might keep people from not joining the club is not sharing common beliefs.
Right.
So if somebody who can't stand spinning a wheel or can't stand the sight of Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore spinning a pottery wheel in the movie Ghost, would they join a pottery club? Probably not. Are they allowed to join the pottery club? Yes. Can the club make them take a test to prove that they're not going to damage themselves or the property when they use the equipment? Yes. But you have to allow anybody to do that if you want to get club funding or have it recognized as a, and then any revenues that come in benefit the whole, benefit the association. So there are so many ways that could be structured. I don't know if I answered the person's question, but that's via my
Yep,
experience.
yep,
You guys,
that's the answer. I wouldn't have any more to add. But
Andy,
yeah,
Andrew, you've seen anything like that?
No, I can't say that I've ever seen a scenario where an association excludes someone from a club. I mean, if an association does do that and and this individual were to sue the club, sue the association, I mean, I guess there's some sort of discrimination allegation possible there. What I guess this is relevant though, I would encourage everyone to, if you have these clubs, if you have committees and they are operating kind of under the discretion of the board or of the association, I would encourage everyone once a year to list them in at a board meeting so they're in the minutes, because the directors and officers policy that associations maintain, it will extend coverage to committees and clubs and volunteers and groups like that. But the language is specific. It says as so long as they're operating under the discretion of the board. So if you have a pottery club and someone gets hurt or something happens with that pottery club and they get sued, just make sure you're listed once a year so that the policy protects you and extends coverage.
Absolutely. And I can attest to that. We had
Yeah.
90 something clubs and we had to list them all.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we have one more under anonymous attendees. So and I think it's just a statement, and 100% true. That's why you hear us talk about every association, every condo association, HOA, they're all run differently, the different boards, different people, but they needed a coup to remove the board of director, the president, who hired his wife's ex-husband as a CAM with lucrative contract. Weak board of director replaced, have property in 2 condos and 2 HOAs, plus a master of 4 HOAs, all run differently. Yes, 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 and yes. Hiring is a big deal. My daughter and I, and Marielle's here, I guess she's listening. We run ACE, but I sit on my board, and every time I introduce a vendor to my community, I disclose it. This is somebody I know. This is somebody I work with in the industry, right? It's disclosed. They're not relatives, they're colleagues, right? I happen to think I work with the absolute best people. So why wouldn't I want to introduce them and put them into the mix, of our community? Plastridge Insurance, my community already had Plastridge Insurance on property before I met Andrew, which has been many, many years now.
Yeah.
But they were already on the property, and I was really happy to see it when I bought my house. So, hiring family members and things, it could be challenging, to say the least. Probably not the best practice. Okay, last is much thanks to all who have initiated mandatory education prior. Few had ever even read the docs or bylaws or state statutes. So,
Well, I agree, but that still happens.
yes, all day long. All day long. And you have new requirements now for board members, but the state is being a little stingy on which courses they're going to allow board members to use as their ongoing, continuing education credits.
And Lee, yeah, you're right. I agree as with your follow-up there too.
Right. Absolutely. So, do you have anything else, Jeff, you want to add? Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I think
We got through all of them and only went over by about 2 minutes. So we did well today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and giving your perspective on so many of these things that we all, talk about, think about. Always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much.
And thanks for having me. I'm happy to help. That was fun, guys.
Yeah. For those of you that are in the general area in South Florida, we do have an in-person breakfast next week at Lucky Strike, which we're very excited about. So you can go to acebytsk.com and register.
Who's teaching that one?
Oh, that's me, yeah. That'll be fun.
So come pick Andrew's brain. He's got a nice presentation. You will get a credit for that, unlike today. But we really do.
And it's all good news. It's been a while since the insurance course has been good news. It's very healthy market, so it'll be positive.
Great.
Yeah, it's as reflected in the title, navigating a hyper-competitive insurance market. I love it. I love it.
So again, I want to thank you, Andrew, for your time today. I want to thank all of you who showed up today to have this conversation with us.